And hello everybody and welcome to the Movie Pit Podcast. I am your host Christian. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast. Today we have a very interesting one this week. We have some movie news to get to, obviously, since this is what we do on the podcast. But we also have a lot of trailers that dropped this week, and we will talk about all of them right after we get to the movie news. So let's just get right to it. First up, of course, we'll talk about all the movie news that came out after the podcast went up last week. We only have a few of them. So the first one is that Hugh Jackman has joined the adaptation of the best-selling novel, The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Now Jackman, of course, will have a very big year next year. He's playing P.T. Barnum in the biopic for The Greatest Showman on Earth, and he will be playing Logan / Wolverine for the last time in the film Logan that comes out early next year. But it looks like he's signed on to another project, assuming this film actually starts filming next year. We don't know that too much, but he has signed on, like I mentioned, to the adaptation of the best-selling novel by Sherman Alexie, The Absolute True Diary of a Part-Time Indian. Jackman's role has yet to be revealed, although some reports are assuming that he could be playing potentially a teacher of some sort, but we don't know at this point. The novel, for those of you who aren't familiar with the book, which I highly recommend you read, it's actually a really great read. It's very quick read too. The book isn't really that long, but it just flies by so much because it really is a good read, and I think anyone can connect to it. And it goes into a lot of themes. It's a very kind of coming of age story. It also touches on race and poverty and bullying and a bunch of other topics and themes that are handled very smoothly and very real in a lot of sense in the novel. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the novel, it tells a story of an inspiring Native American cartoonist who leaves his reservation and enters an all-white high school. And it looks like Sherman Alexie will write the script as well, or at least the first draft of it. But there's no production date or even potential release date announced just yet. Looks like the film is just in the early stages, but with a name like Hugh Jackman attached to it, I'm pretty sure we'll be hearing a lot more about this project in the future. So the next news item is that Aquaman gets a new release. Now Warner Bros. And DC Films, of course, have Justice League coming out next year. They also have Wonder Woman coming out next year. But the next film that looks like they're going to start working on is Aquaman. Now the film originally had a release date of July 27th, 2018, but now it looks like they've moved the film later in the year to October. So now the new release date for Aquaman is October 5th of 2018. Now there's no word yet on why the movie was changed. Maybe they just want to give the film more time to work. Maybe James Wan, who was directing the film, needed more time to work on the film. He's been teasing locations on social media and stuff like that. So we don't know. And there was reports early on that said the script needed a lot more work. So maybe they're still working on the script. Either way, it gives the time. When a movie gets delayed, a lot of times they're like, oh, there's something wrong with the film. But I think in this case, considering all the criticism and some of the lack of faith in the DC extended universe, I think maybe pushing back a film isn't, the worst move that they can make. Right now, the only thing we know about Aquaman is that it will find Jason Momoa, who's playing Aquaman, a reluctant leader of Atlantis, caught between a surface world constantly ravaging the sea and the Atlanteans looking to lash out in revolt. So that being said, we also know that there's at least 2 cast members attached right now, Amber Heard as Mira and William Dafoe as an Atlantean Valko. Both of them will potentially appear in Justice League in small roles next year. But other than that, we don't know too much. There's also talks that Black Manta will be the villain of the film, but that has not yet been confirmed. And finally, and we're going to circle back to this at the end of the podcast, Spider-Man Homecoming will bring back web wings. Now, if you're not familiar with Spider-Man in the very early first iterations of his character in the comics, Spider-Man had web wings, or armpit web wings, depending on where you want to, depending on who you ask and who you talk to. But the web wings were a very predominant feature in character design Spider-Man when he was introduced in 1962. However, since then, of course, they're no longer there. A lot of people, the web wings didn't really give anything, at least character and power wise. They were just kind of there for the aesthetic look. But who knows if the web wings will serve a more bigger purpose here in Spider-Man Homecoming. I'm not the biggest fan of the web wing design, even when I first learned about it. But if they can make the web wings work in the film, then I am all for it. Let them go for it. Let them do it, and we'll see what happens with that. So the web wings are back in Spider-Man Homecoming, and we'll talk about more of Spider-Man Homecoming because the first trailer dropped, and we'll talk about that in trailer talk. So let's get to the news items that came out this week. The first quick news item is that Fast 8 now has a new title. It is called The Fate of the Furious. I'm not too crazy about that title, and neither is anyone else, but that's what Fast 8 is called, The Fate of the Furious. The trailer will be released on Sunday. There's a teaser trailer out right now. That again, it's the whole teaser to the trailers thing that I'm not really a huge fan of. But they released it, and in doing so, they show the title of the film, which is The Fate of the Furious. Again, I'm not too crazy about the title, and they might as well just call it Fast 8 or Furious 8, whatever it was. But I don't know, The Fate of the Furious. I don't know. It's not. I'm not digging that title at all. But the trailer will be released on Sunday, assuming probably during the games, the NFL games, I should say, the Sunday night NFL game anyway. Assuming that's what they're going to do. So obviously, when the trailer drops, we'll talk about it next week. Or you can just go to my Facebook page at facebook.com/moviepit, or you can just go to any various social media accounts, because I'm pretty sure the trailer is going to be all over social media on Sunday, assuming they release it at night. That's probably the good assumption that we'll be releasing at night. So just be on the lookout for that. That comes out on Sunday. So let's move on to some release date shifts. We have quite a few releases that have been moved around. Baywatch, we will talk about that later on. We're going to circle back to that with Dwayne Johnson and Zac Efron. That has been moved from its May 19th release to a more predominant weekend release of Memorial Day weekend on May 26th. Apparently the film had some good test screenings, and apparently they thought that it would be able to compete with Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man Tell No Tales, so they will be battling it out. That sounded weird. Battling it out on Memorial Day weekend on May 26th. Guy Ritchie's King Arthur film, King Arthur Legend of the Sword, with Charlie Hunnam playing King Arthur, has been moved to a prime summer movie season spot on May 12th. The film was originally going to come out on March 24th, but it looks like Warner Brothers thinks the film is good enough to compete in the summer movie season, or at least it's going to be fun, so there you go. Also, Dax Shepard's feature film Chips has been moved to the March 24th spot. That's 5 months earlier than it was supposed to be released, so that's probably a good sign, maybe. Now it will go up against Life, which is a sci-fi film that stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Ryan Reynolds, and Rebecca Ferguson. And the only other film coming out that weekend is the Power Rangers film. So, Chips, King Arthur Legend. I'm sorry, not King Arthur Legend. That was the original release date. So, Chips, Life, and Power Rangers will be battling it out on March 24th for you guys to watch. Annabelle 2, which is the sequel, of course, to Annabelle, has been moved from its more prominent summer movie spot on May 19th to later in the summer on August 11th of next year. So that will put it up against Edgar Wright's newest film, Baby Driver, which we'll talk about that more when more stuff comes out. That stars Anson Elgort as a getaway driver who can't really hear, so he has an internal soundtrack in his head. It's pretty interesting. The idea sounds interesting. It's Edgar Wright, of course, director of Hot Fuzz, all the Shaun of the Dead, Hot Fuzz, At World's End, films like that. So I'm really looking forward to that. And finally, How to Train Your Dragon 3 has gotten delayed again. The film was supposed to come out this year before it got pushed back to 2018, and then now it's being released on May 1st of 2019. Now, I know fans will be like, well, that's being delayed 3 times. That, again, is usually a bad sign. However, How to Train Your Dragon 3 is an animated film. Animated films take a lot longer. Also, DreamWorks Animation, which does the film and releases the film, they have moved studios. So it kind of makes sense that they're just shifting some stuff around at the moment. One final release date that's been moved around. This isn't really connected to the other ones. Oh, it is connected. It's a release date shift, but this kind of goes more into detail on what's going on. There is a Cloverfield IMAX movie that's getting released next year in the fall in October, and it could potentially maybe be God Particle, which we talked about on the podcast. So for those of you guys who don't know, we've talked about a little bit here on the podcast as well. Cloverfield has kind of it looks like it's becoming essentially our new somewhat Twilight Zone films. It's J.J. Abrams' production company, Bad Robot, along with Paramount Pictures. They've announced they will be releasing a Cloverfield loosely connected universe film every year. And of course, it started all the way back with Cloverfield, which is the found footage monster movie. Then 10 Cloverfield Lane came out earlier this year, which was really good. If you haven't watched it yet, I highly recommend you do. The third act does get a little crazy, and that's when it really connects to Cloverfield, but it's still overall a really great film. I'm not saying the found footage Cloverfield movie was good. I am one of the people that actually likes Cloverfield, so there's that. So the third film was going to be God Particle, and it was going to be led by David Oyelowo, who played Martin Luther King in Selma, and Gugu Mbatha-Raw, who was just making a name for herself and a bunch of great stuff. And there was going to be about astronauts who make a terrifying discovery that challenges all they know about the fabric of reality as they desperately fight to survive. So that's what it was, and we're assuming that maybe this is what they're calling it, a Cloverfield IMAX movie, is going to be God Particle with a new name, similar to what they did with 10 Cloverfield Lane, because originally it was called The Cellar, and then they changed the title to Valencia, and then they finally changed the title to 10 Cloverfield Lane when they decided to make it when they decided to connect it to the Cloverfield universe. So God Particle could essentially be this untitled Cloverfield IMAX movie. The release date is October 27th of next year. So they took God Particle out of the schedule, but again, this could be just them maybe changing the name, or they've been secretly working on another film that we don't know about, or they're just changing the release date of God Particle to come out in 2018. We don't know just yet, so we'll have to wait and see on that. I'm all for the Cloverfield universe kind of becoming this Twilight Zone-esque kind of deal. I think it's really great. And if 10 Cloverfield Lane is any example, then I think we're in good hands. I think the universe and the whole thing is in good hands. I know the third act gets a little crazy for a lot of people, but and even for me, I'll admit it's a bit out there, but I like the idea. So we'll wait and see what happens. Obviously, I'm pretty sure we'll be hearing something about this. If not this year, I'm sure by the summer of next year, or even before then. All right, so let's move on to the next news item. Christopher Nolan's next film, Dunkirk, will screen 7 minutes before select Rogue One, A Star Wars Story IMAX showings. And if you need any other reason to go watch Rogue One next weekend, I mentioned on the podcast last week that it was supposed to come out this week. I was mistaken. I got a little ahead of myself. It's coming out next week, not this week. So anyway, if you need another reason to go watch Rogue One in IMAX, Christopher Nolan's next film, Dunkirk, which is a World War II film, will screen a 7-minute prologue in front of 7mm IMAX screenings. Now, it should be noted that not all IMAX theaters carry the 7mm projection. So, if you want to know if your IMAX theater is one of those theaters that carry the 7mm projections, then you should know that beforehand. If it doesn't, then you probably won't see it, and you'll just watch a bunch of other trailers and not the 7-minute prologue that's attached to it. It's a pretty big deal. I was gonna say huge deal because obviously the IMAX screens are huge, but I'm not gonna make that pun, although I just did. But Nolan's films are no strangers to exclusive IMAX previews. The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises both got special previews before other big films, so it makes sense that he would that IMAX would do this with him, because he's The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises. A lot of sections of that were filmed on IMAX cameras, so it looks pretty. It is pretty cool. But the exclusive that it's only exclusive to 7mm projections does hinder a little bit, because not everyone's going to be able to watch it. Because again, not all IMAX screenings are confirmed to that. But I don't know. It should be interesting to see. I mean, it's not like Dunkirk has. It's not coming out anytime soon. It's actually coming out next year on July 21st. So it is a long wait. But it's a 6-month wait almost at this point. 7th month, I should say. It's Christopher Nolan, and people who are lucky enough to see that, I'm sure a description of it will come out online after the screenings. So we'll just have to wait and see. And maybe they'll release it online. I highly doubt it, but maybe, you never know. So if you're one of those lucky people that gets to see Rogue One, a Star Wars story on a 7mm, I think it's millimeter. I could be pronouncing that wrong. I think it's millimeter. Projection. We'll just go with that. I've said it too much already. I've said it too many times already. If you're one of those lucky people that gets to see that, obviously just spread the word online so we can know what's going on with that. Alright, so let's move on to our next news item. James Gunn says that Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, again, another thing we'll loop around back in trailer talk, isn't really connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Now, of course, we all know the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a well-oiled machine, that all their films are interconnected in some way or another. So seeing James Gunn come out and say that, of course, his highly anticipated Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 film is not necessarily connected to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that's saying something. So a fan asked Gunn on Twitter, and Gunn released a statement saying, quote, "I'm so out in space, unconnected at this point. Outside of Thanos in Volume 1, I've never had to deal with even a single moment of continuity," end quote. Now, there is some give to this comment, because obviously the film is set in space, probably the far reaches of space, so time moves differently up there. And it's not like the Marvel Cinematic Universe has given a specific time frame for a lot of these films. It's not necessarily like, oh, this film takes place after this film, and that film takes place after this film. That's not really the case, because certain moments of The Incredible Hulk, or not certain moments, most of The Incredible Hulk took place before the events or during the events of Iron Man 2. Of course, those events are never really mentioned in any other film, other than bringing back General Thunderbolt Ross in Captain America Civil War. They're not really mentioned, and some parts of Thor take place during Iron Man 2 as well. So we can assume, and even that, we can even assume that maybe some events of Doctor Strange took place during Captain America the Winter Soldier, since they name dropped him, and there was no reason for S.H.I.E.L.D. to have any sort of, threat against Doctor Strange, since he was just a doctor at that point. So maybe him coming back to New York and being, essentially kind of, he's not really the Sorcerer Supreme at the end of the film, I don't think, but him being, Doctor Strange, the one we know from the comics, it would make sense that S.H.I.E.L.D. would have him as a threat, quote unquote, for them. So it's not really like, oh, this has to take place during this, and this has to take place during this. However, like I mentioned, Marvel and the Marvel Cinematic Universe is a very well-oiled machine. And Guardians of the Galaxy was a very big film for Marvel, and was a very big film for James Gunn. So I can assume that maybe Marvel would be like, you know what, we'll give you some freedom on this. So we'll see what's going on. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 comes out next year on May 5th. And there are some rumors suggesting that they could appear in the next Avengers film, or maybe even the one after that. Sticking with comic books at the moment, Richard E. Grant's character in Logan has been confirmed. Richard E. Grant's character in Logan has been rumored for a while. We've talked about some of those rumors here on the podcast. And it's now confirmed that he'll be playing a character named Rice. Now, based on which Rice he's playing, it will lend to some very interesting story details. In the comics, there was a father-son of doctors who have a major connection to Logan/Wolverine. There was speculation that Grant would play Dr. Xander Rice, a scientist who has a grudge with Wolverine because his father, Dale Rice, was involved in the Weapon X program that gave Wolverine his claws, and when Wolverine escaped, he essentially killed him in his escape. So there is word that he could maybe be playing Xander Rice, or maybe his father, because in the comics there's a connection to Dale Rice, who again was killed, but Dale Rice could also be the man that was holding the briefcase at the end of the credits of X-Men Apocalypse with the XX Corp brand, which of course Nathaniel Essex, aka Mr. Sinister. So there could be that. So he can be playing that. And in the comics, there's a character, Dale Rice, who deals with another character actually that has a briefcase, but it would make sense that they wouldn't want to bring too many characters, and they would just make the Rice father-son duo essentially these characters. So I think it was Hugh Jackman that released a photo with Richard E. Grant, and he had the caption Rice on it. So he could be playing the scientist, the grown son of him, since obviously Logan is taking place in the future. So we'll see what happens with that. But now we know who he's playing, so we have that under our board. So let's move on to the next news item. Little Shop of Horrors is getting a musical remake, and it already has a director in tow. You hear that? That is a sound of all the fans screaming to the heavens right now. Deadline is reporting that Little Shop of Horrors remake is in the works, and not only that, it will be a musical, and it has picked up a director in Greg Berlanti. For those who don't know, Little Shop of Horrors started off as an off-Broadway play directed by Richard Corman before it became the famous and campy cult classic Frank Oz directed Little Shop of Horrors with Rick Moranis. And if you haven't seen Little Shop of Horrors, I actually haven't seen Little Shop of Horrors in a very long time. So I think I'd have to watch it again because I don't remember too much about it. All I remember is, of course, the thing that everyone remembers, which is the dentist scene. And if you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, everyone who has seen Little Shop of Horrors will probably remember the dentist. Just putting it that way. And I'm not going to ruin anything on that, just in case you want to watch it. But the film is about a man who raises a plant and discovers that it needs to kill and feed on living people in order to stay alive and keep it fed. So it's a very interesting film from what I remember. But again, I haven't seen it in so long. I'm not really that connected to it as a lot of other people are. So there's that. So they're going to remake it into a musical, which will set it apart from all the other remakes and reboots that have been going on. Is it a good idea? Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But that seems to be the new thing. Let's remake something into a musical. You have all the TV specials like Grease, and they just did Hairspray the other day as well. So there's that. But when it comes to Berlanti, he may not be the best household name, but comic book fans sure know who he is. Greg Berlanti is the man responsible for creating what many people are calling the Arrowverse. He created all the comic book shows that are on the CW right now. He created Arrow, The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and Supergirl. He's an executive producer on all of those. He's also an executive producer on the NBC shows Blind Spot, and he's going to be an executive producer on the CW show Riverdale, which is of course based off Archie. And he was a producer on films like Pan, which again was not very well received when it came out last year, and he was also a producer on the Green Lantern film. Yes, that Green Lantern film. But he has directed some stuff under his belt. He directed the pilot episode, I believe, of the political drama Political Animals. He filmed a movie with Katherine Heigl and Josh Duhamel called Life as We Know It, and he is currently attached to direct a young adult novel called Simon versus the Homo Sapiens Agenda, which is about a closeted gay teen who's blackmailed by a class clown when he discovers a revealing email. Nick Robinson, one of the brothers the older brother, I should say, in Jurassic World, is in talks to star in that film. And he's also going to potentially direct, or not potentially direct, he is going to direct the potential Booster Gold film when that finally comes out, which is another comic book character, by the way. So Berlanti has a lot of things on his plate. So even if you don't think he's the best name to do that, he's attached to so many shows, and a lot of these shows are very successful. A lot of these shows have great fan followings. So I'm for it. I think if Greg Berlanti is a man that seems that when he finds a subject that he's a fan of, he's gonna treat it with great respect. So I know a lot of people don't want a Little Shop of Horrors remake, but I think if anyone's gonna do it, I think Greg Berlanti is a good choice. And I know a lot of people are just gonna see him as the TV guy, but considering again how many shows he has under his belt, I don't think we should count him out. Just give him a chance. Let's see what happens with that. There's no production date or a projected release date for that film just yet. And here's a interesting news item. It should be taken as a grain of salt, so don't take this news item too seriously, at least for the moment. According to a fan site called AVP Galaxy, which is Alien vs. Predator Galaxy, James Franco may appear in Alien Covenant. Now the report this fan site claims is that it landed, quote, an exclusive information that states that James Franco has been cast in the role of the captain of the ship by the character of a name called Branson. Not only that, Branson would be the husband character to Daniels, which is being played by Catherine Waterstone, who is, at least at this point, we're figuring is the lead character of the film. Now, details of his character supposedly mark him as a supporting character, as he allegedly appears only in the first 10 minutes of the film before sporadically appearing throughout the film. And he will be a character that is very heavily featured in the viral marketing campaign for Alien Covenant. Now, apparently Fox screened some scenes, a lot of scenes I should say, for Alien Covenant, and the reception was very, very positive, saying that the film looked scarier and it looked bloody, and it had a bunch of gore in it, and it was very dramatic. So so far the reaction for Alien Covenant is very positive. As for James Franco, I mean, I don't know. James Franco, he's a great actor when he's given the right material and when he shows up. I'm not saying he doesn't show up for a lot of his other roles, but when he's given the right material and he allows himself to be, put on the forefront and give these great performances, he delivers a lot of it for most of the time. So him appearing in Alien Covenant, I mean, it's not too out of the realm of possibility. Obviously, these Alien films, if Prometheus is to show us anything, that these new Alien films are going to be ensemble pieces. I think you forget a lot of times that Idris Elba was in Prometheus, along with Charlize Theron, Michael Fassbender, and of course Naomi Rapace, and all these other great supporting actors around them. And right now, Alien Covenant, again, Catherine Waterstone's in the film. Michael Fassbender is going to return. Naomi Rapace is also going to return. Carmen Echigo, I think that's how you pronounce her name, is going to be in the film. Billy Crudup, Danny McBride is going to be in the film. Kaylee Hernandez from Blair Witch, Damian Bashir. You have just these big names. There was a rumor that maybe Guy Pearce would come back as Wayland in some sort of flashback sequence. We don't know, but the idea that maybe James Franco would appear in the film as a supporting role isn't crazy. It's not the biggest, craziest idea out there. Again, these films now feel like they're going to be ensemble pieces, which is fine. I think you kind of want that for kind of these big films like that. And so far, the reception so far from some of the footage that some people saw at a presentation, they all really liked it. And Ridley Scott's going to come back to direct the film. So I don't know. I mean, if he's actually in the film, then great. If he does the role justice and he's a great character, then fine. But we have to just take this news as a grain of salt, because that's what it is right now. Alien Covenant will come out next year. Yes, next year on May 19th. So I'm sure we'll be hearing a lot more of this film soon. Maybe even a trailer soon. Who knows? Maybe. Who knows? But we'll see. Obviously, we'll hear more on that, I should say, as the time goes on. Let's move on to the next bit of news items. Damian Lewis joins Ocean's 8 as the villain. The female-led Ocean's 11 spin-off Ocean's 8 has landed the villain in Damian Lewis. Variety confirms the report that Lewis will play the villain in the film, and he's actually playing the ex-lover and target of the heist that is being led by Sandra Bullock's character, which she is playing, can't talk right now, is playing the sister of George Clooney's character, Danny Ocean, from the Ocean's 11 films. Lewis, if you don't know his name, you probably know him for his work on the hit Showtime show, I should say, Homeland. He's also on their new show, Showtime's new show, Billions. Season 2 comes out next year. Yeah, he's also appeared on Band of Brothers. He was in Dreamcatcher. He was in Wolf Hall. He's just one of those actors who kind of seems to be forgotten about a lot of times, but every time he appears, you know it's going to be good. He is a great actor that I should be given a lot more chances. He's also most recently he's been on a lot of lists to play the next James Bond. So Damian Lewis, he's a great addition to the cast, which is already big enough. The film was directed by Gary Ross, who directed the first Hunger Games films. He also recently directed the Matthew McConaughey Civil War drama, Free State of Jones. But the cast includes, again, Sandra Bullock, Damian Lewis, Cate Blanchett, Anne Hathaway, Sarah Paulson, Mindy Kaling, Helena Bonham Carter, Rihanna, Dakota Fanning, I should say, and Aquafina, and also Matt Damon, who of course was a star of the original, or not the original, because there is an original Ocean's 11. The George Clooney, Steven Soderbergh films were remakes. Matt Damon will appear in the film, pretty much connecting two worlds together. Ocean's 8 is currently filming in New York and has a release date of June 8th, 2018. Walton Goggins is in negotiations for Tomb Raider as the villain. The reboot of Tomb Raider has been pretty quiet recently. We know that Alicia Vikander has signed on to play Lara Croft, and now they're in negotiations with Walter Goggins as the villain. Details on who or what kind of villain is being kept secret at the moment, but Goggins is a great addition. He is one of those guys that every time you see him, you know he's going to just bring his A game. If you don't know who I'm talking about, Walter Goggins, he was on The Shield. He was most recently in Django Unchained. He played one of the main guys in that film. He was on a great show called Justified. If you haven't watched it, and it's no longer on air, but I highly recommend you go watch it. He's one of those guys that anytime he shows up, you know it's going to be a lot of fun. He's just one of these guys that is constantly great in everything he does. So if they get him to play the villain in this film, I think it's gonna be pretty cool. Seeing him and Alicia Vikander probably trading shots is gonna be it sounds exciting. So we don't know too much about the plot. We do know that according to producer Graham King, that Laura is searching for her father, whether he be dead or alive, and it will essentially be an origin story, since it's going to follow a little bit of the recent video games, which in themselves are following Lara Croft before she becomes the adventurer that, of course, we all knew from the games before. The film currently has a release date of March 16th, 2018. Obviously, I will keep you guys updated on that when news comes out. Finally, the last news item of the podcast this week. Kate McKinnon gets a lead role in the graphic novel adaptation of The Lunch Witch. 2016 has been a pretty good year. It's been a nice year for Kate McKinnon. The SNL cast member, it essentially became a household name, playing Gillian Holtzman in Ghostbusters. She was playing, she's had supporting roles in a bunch of other films. Christmas Party, which we'll talk about later on the podcast. Masterminds, a bunch of other stuff, and of course she's played Hillary Clinton on SNL. Well, it looks like after playing supporting roles for pretty much her recent film career, she has finally landed her very own lead in her own movie. She will star in the young adult graphic novel adaptation of The Lunch Witch. The source material was written by Deb Lucky and follows Grunhilde, who comes from a long line of witches, but since no one believes in magic anymore, and despite inheriting her family's cauldron and recipes, she has to work as a lunch lady, which is the best way for her to get her scare quota. However, she finds a kindred spirit in a young girl named Madison who has fallen behind in school and doesn't fit in with her classmates. Grunhilde then finds herself wanting to help Madison, even though helping others goes against everything she believes in as a witch. So this sounds pretty much like up McKinnon's alley. She's known for playing these kind of just a little bit over the top kind of characters, and it sounds like she'll probably do the character some justice as well. The film will be directed by Clay Cadis, who directed the Angry Birds movie earlier this year, which McKinnon actually lent her voice in as well. But other than that, no production date has been given. So obviously this will be a project that we'll be talking about a lot probably in the future. I like Kate McKinnon. I think she is funny, and she's just one of those stars that is going to be in films for a long time. So you better get used to her, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. So finally seeing her get a lead role is really cool. So, all right, that was all the news items that came out, at least at the time of this recording. So let's move on to trailer talk. Despite all the news items we just talked about, it was a week of trailers, guys. I mean, there was a lot of trailers. It felt like Hollywood was like, "Oh, you got a trailer? You got one too? Really? Oh, just release them. It's okay. Just release them. No one's gonna care. Just release it." That's what it felt like, because there was trailers dropping pretty much every day. So we have a new trailer for Charlie Day and Ice Cube's comedy Fist Fights, which is about Charlie Day and Ice Cube are high school teachers, and Day's character ends up getting Ice Cube's teacher into trouble, and of course Ice Cube's teacher challenges Charlie Day's teacher's character into a fist fight at the parking lot after school, and it just becomes this really big, over the top, out of control kind of deal. The trailer's pretty funny. I'm not gonna lie, it's pretty funny, but we'll see what happens when it comes out. That comes out next year. All these films come out next year, by the way, so you should be looking forward to all these films. And of course, all the links to the trailers will be down below if you want to go check these out. The first trailer for the Emma Watson-led adaptation of the young adult novel The Circle was released. It's a very Black Mirror-esque kind of, it looks like a very Black Mirror-esque film. Emma Watson kind of joins this group called The Circle, which is led by Tom Hanks. Yes, Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks looks like he's going to play the quote villain in this movie. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. And he almost gives off kind of like this Steve Jobs-esque vibe, at least in the trailers. That's kind of what I got from it. But yeah, so she joins this, and it's basically there's no secrets. Everyone knows what you're thinking. It's a very interesting concept, and I have not read the young adult novel. I know some people that have. So if you want to look forward to that, The Circle is down there. There was a new trailer for 50 Shades Darker. Let's move on. I don't know. I'm not the target audience for this film, so what am I going to say? So there was the first trailer for the Doug Liman directed war thriller The Wall. It stars Aaron Taylor Johnson and John Cena as soldiers, and they are stuck in the middle, pretty much in the middle of nowhere, and they get attacked by a sniper. And the only thing protecting them from this sniper is essentially a crumbled brick wall. And it looks really good. It looks really intense. I'm really looking forward to it. Doug Liman is a great director. Edge of Tomorrow, The Bourne Identity, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. I'm really looking forward to this. And anything Doug Liman touches essentially is something I really want to watch. And Aaron Taylor Johnson has showed that he can handle some good material. And I'm pretty sure I've mentioned this on the podcast before. I'm still a wrestling fan. It's John Cena. I'm going to go watch it. I'm not watching it just for John Cena. I'm watching it because the trailer actually looks really intense. So, and it's directed by Doug Liman. So there's that. The first trailer for Transformers: The Last Knight has been released, and it just looks terrible. It does not look good. It really doesn't. Look, say what you want about the Transformers films. I know I have. there was this thing where all the trailers for the Transformers films, despite the movies not being that great, sometimes the trailers are really good. But even after you watch those good trailers, you know this movie's gonna suck. But watching this trailer, it felt like they were going too dark. It felt like the movie's not gonna be this way. You know the movie's gonna be like a lot of fun, quote unquote fun, mindless fun. Let's put it that way. But I don't know. I don't. The trailer just wasn't that great. Like it picks up after halfway through, but I don't know. I'm not a fan of it. I'm really not. I'm not a fan. I watched it twice just to see if I was like, oh, my hatred for Transformers is getting in the way. I watched it when it came out, and then I watched it a couple of days afterward. Still no. I did not enjoy it. So the next trailer is Baywatch, which I mentioned we'd get back to. Stars Dwayne Johnson, Zac Efron, Alexandra Daddario. It's going the 21 Jump Street route, kind of in that similar vein and humor and stuff like that. It looks good. I'm not gonna lie, it looks good. It looks good. I'm gonna go watch it. It's just the trailer was really funny. It doesn't take itself too seriously. I mean, not like the original took itself too serious. I mean, if you're going to be like, oh, they're messing up Baywatch, go back and watch the original Baywatch. It did not take itself too seriously. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Or you just don't remember Baywatch like a lot of other people do. It did not take itself too seriously. This trailer looks like the film's not going to take itself too seriously. I'm going to go watch it. It looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. There's a final trailer for Assassin's Creed. It's pretty much the best trailer they've released for the film so far. We actually get a sense of the real story. There's a lot of brand new footage in the film. You know what the whole purpose is. It's not just being like, oh, we just want his memories. No, there's a lot more to the trailer and to the film that this trailer gives off. So I highly recommend you go watch it. Again, it's the best trailer they've released so far. You get a lot more of the story. If you're not a fan of Assassin's Creed or just don't know too much about the video game, this trailer pretty much gives you the layout of that. So pretty much essentially the first game in a lot of respect. So go watch it. I highly recommend it. It's the best trailer they released for the film so far. I mentioned last week on the podcast that the Mummy, the new Mummy film with Tom Cruise, they were going to release the first trailer on kind of similar to what The Fate of the Furious, it's a stupid title, was doing. They're releasing the trailer on Sunday. So they released the trailer for the Mummy on Sunday, and it looks really good. It does. It honestly looks a lot better than I thought it was going to look. We get a lot of great shots of Sofia Boutella playing the Mummy. We get to see Russell Crowe in the film as well. He's playing Dr. Jekyll in the film, or Dr. Hyde, whichever the human one is. I always forget which one it is. I think it's Dr. Jekyll. So we get to see him in the film. We get to see Tom Cruise in the film, running around doing his usual thing. It looks really good. It looks like they're blending action, adventure, and horror aspects all into one. I'm really looking forward to it. I wasn't that hyped up for it at first, but seeing the trailer, I'm looking forward to the Mummy. It looks really good. So there's a first trailer. I told you they just dropped a bunch of trailers this week. The first trailer for War for the Planet of the Apes came out. It looks absolutely fantastic. The trailer is filled with stunning, beautiful cinematography shots. We get jumps of the action. It looks like there's gonna be like there's a fight in the snow, because there's a part where the Caesar is leading these apes on horseback through a wintry forest, and they're fighting off these military guys. It looks great. I highly recommend you go watch this. I have been a huge fan of the rebooted Planet of the Apes films. Each one keeps getting better and better, and it looks like War for the Planet of the Apes is going to continue that trend. I cannot wait for this film when it comes out. So the first and pretty much the first, because the first trailer that came out was essentially a sneak preview. So the first trailer for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 came out, and it is hilarious. It is. I'm sure you've seen all the posts online with Baby Groot on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, wherever you go. But I'm sure you've seen it. It is absolutely hilarious. love this trailer. It shows all of our lovable idiots all together, or a-holes, as Chris Pratt's Star-Lord puts it in the trailer. It's just absolutely great. There's no story details. It's just pure shots. It's all them having their moments, hilarious lines. We see Baby Groot. There's going to be a bunch of Baby Groot shirts and just toys everywhere. So Baby Groot's going to be the hit of the town when it comes out. So it looks absolutely fantastic. I cannot wait for it. Finally, the last trailer that came out is the first trailer for Spider-Man Homecoming. And that, it looks really good. It looks really good. The trailer, honestly, the trailer showed a lot more than I thought it would. But I'm okay with it. It didn't show too much. It showed a lot more than I thought it would, but it didn't show too much. And that's the balance that a lot of studios can't figure out a lot of the time. So I really enjoyed it. We get a lot of cool shots in it. We get to see Tony Stark. We get to see Robert Downey Jr. in the film. He's going to appear in the film as Tony Stark. Even Iron Man. There's a final shot in the trailer where we see Spider-Man swinging, and right alongside him, I'm pretty sure it made every nerd and comic book fan just jump up in delight. We saw Iron Man flying right next to him. So it looks really cool. We get to see Vulture. Vulture looks really intense. The design is really cool. The suit looks badass. And we get to see Michael Keaton essentially kind of threatening. We don't know if it's Spider-Man or Peter Parker, but he's threatening someone, and he sounds really scary. So that's always a good thing to have. So Tom Holland looks like he's perfect. He's great for Peter Parker. There's a lot of humor in there. We do kind of get a little John Hughes X kind of element and feel when they're in the high school setting. I can't wait for this. You should just watch the trailer. It's really great. And you see the web wings, which we talked about earlier, in the trailer as well. So I can't wait for it. It looks really great. Yeah, it hits you right off the bat. It just hits you with a scene with him stopping some bank robbers. It's awesome. You just go watch it if you get the chance. All the trailer links will be down below in the comments or in the description/show notes area for you guys to go. I'm just so excited. I'm going to go watch some of these trailers after I'm done recording this podcast again, because a lot of them were just really good. It was a good week for trailers, guys. Go check it out down below. Alright, so let's get to this week's releases. We have a few expansion releases. We have actually 3 expansion releases. The first one is Miss Sloane, which is the Jessica Chastain film, where she plays a lobbyist going up against the gun lobby, pretty much. So that comes out pretty much wide release this weekend. Also, Nocturnal Animals gets an expansion release. That's the movie film with Amy Adams, Jake Gyllenhaal, Armie Hammer, Michael Shannon, Aaron Taylor Johnson. It's a star-studded cast. That comes out as well. It's very kind of I'm about to say sci-fi. It's not sci-fi. It's a thriller aspect film, and it looks really great as well. Also getting an expansion released this week is Jackie, the Natalie Portman film where she plays Jacqueline Kennedy. That gets an expanded release as well. So check your local theaters. Miss Sloane and Nocturnal Animals are getting the wide release. Jackie is getting the expansion release. So check your theaters for that. But the big limited release this week is La La Land, directed by Damian Chazelle, who did Whiplash. A jazz pianist played by Ryan Gosling falls for an inspiring actress played by Emma Stone in Los Angeles. This film looks absolutely great, and everything that all the reviews that have been coming out from it have been great. Everyone has been saying great things about La La Land. People are saying that it's going to get nominated for Best Picture. It's just people are saying the soundtrack is amazing, and if the trailers are any indication, that is the case. I think I mentioned in my Thanksgiving podcast, which is the Q&A podcast, that I was looking forward to La La Land just based off the trailers, because the trailer where Emma Stone sings one of the songs is just sticks with me. I watched that trailer and over again just to hear the like 2 minutes of the song. Is great. So I'm really looking forward to La La Land. It's getting a limited release this week. It's getting an expansion release next week. I think the wide release is also next week as well. So obviously we'll talk about La La Land again next week as well. But it's getting a limited release this week. Be on the lookout for that. If you want to go check that out. Also, another wide, it's a limited release, but it's a quote wide release this week, is The Bounce Back. And it's about a relationship guru and a best-selling author finds himself falling for a licensed therapist who questions his methods. The film stars Shamar Moore, Nadine Velasquez, Michael Beach, Cheryl Underwood, and Kaylee Hawk. This film, I believe, was supposed to come out earlier this year, and it got pushed back to now. And it's getting a quote wide release, but it's like under 1,000 theaters. So again, if you want to check that out, be aware of your theaters showings. The wide release this week, the real wide release this week, is Office Christmas Party. When his uptight CEO sister, played by Jennifer Aniston, threatens to shut down his branch, the branch manager, played by T.J. Miller, throws an epic Christmas party in order to land a big client, played by Courtney B. Vance, and save the day. But the party, of course, gets out of hand. The film also stars Jason Bateman, Olivia Munn, Kate McKinnon, Jillian Bell, Rob Corddry, Vanessa Bayer, Randall Park, Sam Richardson, Abby Lee, and Jamie Chung. This one looks pretty crazy. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It has a pretty good funny cast. You got T.J. Miller in there. You got Jason Bateman. You got Olivia Munn, Kate McKinnon, which we talked about earlier, Jillian Bell, Rob Corddry. It looks pretty funny. Obviously, it looks. This movie is not gonna be one of those movies where you'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go in for a serious time. No, you know what you're getting from the trailers and the TV spots and from the cast. You know what you're getting. So just go in. Just have some fun. That's what this movie looks like. So and I'm partially biased because the film was filmed here in Chicago. So, but it looks okay. I mean, it doesn't look. I'm not rushing to the theater to go watch it, but I'm probably gonna go watch it this weekend. Just putting it that way. So, all right. So again, Office Christmas Party, your wide release this week. Other release this week: The Bounce Back, La La Land, and getting an expansion release: Miss Sloane, Nocturnal Animals, and Jackie. Alright, so let's move on to this week's box office predictions. Last week I predicted the box office would stay the same. However, I was wrong. The box office last week, or my picks for the box office last week, were Moana, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Doctor Strange, Allied, and Arrival. The actual box office was Moana, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Arrival, Allied, and Doctor Strange. So number 3 and number 5. So the bottom half of the box office got moved around on me, which I was okay with. Again, it was a tough weekend. It was Thanksgiving weekend, or post-Thanksgiving weekend, I should say. So be on the lookout for that. So this week's picks are going to be pretty much almost the same, except for one exception, which is, of course, Office Christmas Party. So I think Moana is going to stay at number 1 once again for the third time in a row. I think that will be number 1. Number 2 would probably be Office Christmas Party. Number 3 will be Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. Arrival will be at number 4, and Allied will be at number 3. I'm really happy that Arrival is sticking in the top 5, and I think it will. It just crossed, I believe it just crossed the $100 million mark at the box office this week, so I'm really happy for that, because Arrival is really good. If you haven't seen Arrival, I highly recommend you go watch it. It's a very good film, so go watch it. So my picks again: Moana, Office Christmas Party, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, Arrival, and Allied. Those are my box office picks. Thank you guys so much for listening to the box office this week. You guys are amazing. You guys are great. And again, if go check out all the trailers. All the links will be put down below in the description / show notes area. If you want to go hear a news item again, the timestamps are right there for you guys to go check out. Also, links to my Facebook page for the Movie Pit podcast are down below. You can go like the Facebook page at facebook.com/moviepit. That's facebook.com/moviepit. You guys get an early preview of what we're going to talk about here on the podcast, links to all the trailers, and you also get a link to my review page, which if you just want to like my review page, you can do that as well. Written reviews and more written by me over at movieswithchris.wordpress.com. That's movieswithchris.wordpress.com. Again, written reviews, monthly previews, and a bunch of other stuff coming soon on that page. The Facebook page, again, early preview of what we're going to talk about here on the show. Sometimes stuff we don't talk about here on the podcast. I think I just called it show, but it's a show. In some ways, it's a show as well. So be on the lookout for that. Go click on that. Go click on those links. Give me a like. Follow me over there. And again, the trailer links will all be down there as well. So thank you guys so much for listening to the podcast again. Let me know what your favorite news item was, what movie you're looking forward toward this weekend, what you probably already saw this weekend if you're listening to this over the weekend. And yeah, so let me know what you guys thought. Any general questions, comments, concerns, anything positive out there. So let me know in the comments for that. So thank you guys again for the fifth time probably. You should start a drinking game of how many times I say thank you on the podcast. Actually, don't do that because that would probably be bad for your health. So yeah, all right. One more time, thank you guys for listening to the podcast, and I will see you guys next week on another edition of the podcast. We'll talk about, of course, more movie news, more trailers, and we'll talk about the movies that are coming out next week. Of course, the big one next week, Rogue One. Just putting it out there. So yeah, thank you guys so much. Be safe this weekend. Have a good one. Stay warm. It's gonna be pretty cold in some areas this weekend. So be aware of that. If you've been hit by snow, be careful out there. Drive safe and be aware of surroundings. So yeah. So thank you guys so much. You guys have a good, safe weekend, and I will see you guys next week. And as always, go watch some movies.